This is kind of weird for me to talk about. I've always had a doubt in my mind about these experiences I've had that maybe I'm crazy or hallucinated them. I've had a few paranormal things happen to me. I'll start with the first most intense experience first. This happened about 8 years ago or so. I was 20, I think, and lived in an apartment with my brother and some friends. A week prior, I had a friend offer me DMT. It was my first time ever trying it, and so I accepted. I smoked it, but nothing at all happened. Just a weird visual in my head when I closed my eyes, and then after a few seconds it was gone. There was this feeling that remained though, some extra feeling that had never been there before. It felt very real but subtle. I was never into meditation, but I decided to meditate and focus on that feeling. I did, and every day I did so I sort of felt my sanity start to slip. I felt presences around me. After a week of this, one day there was no one in the apartment and I was sitting in the kitchen. The kitchen was upstairs and I was sitting on a bar stool on a counter. The stairs to the kitchen area were to my back. All of a sudden, I felt that feeling again, but more stronger than I ever felt it before. It didn't feel like it was just a feeling inside me anymore. It felt like it was outside of me. Like I said, I felt like my sanity, or at least what I believed was my normal behavior, was slipping. And so I called out loud while my back was facing the stairs, "Come closer." I actually heard footsteps and some clinking of chains or something moving up the stairs. I didn't dare look behind me because I didn't want to disturb whatever this experience was. I called out again, "Come closer." And whatever that feeling was became stronger and stronger, like it really was moving closer. The air actually felt electrified. My whole body was vibrating. It felt very intense, like I was in the presence of something very powerful. I can't remember if I said "come closer" again. But what happened next was I felt its hands on my shoulders. As soon as that happened, I felt a bolt of electricity run from the bottom of my spine out to the top of my head. When it reached my head, I saw in my mind a picture of a flower blooming. And then I saw myself, the back of my head. I was looking at myself through its eyes. My hands were like furry black paws, and I was wearing some sort of robe or cloak, like the ones the Jedi wear in Star Wars. I looked like a dog creature, and I had big pointy black ears. I saw my furry paws resting on my own shoulders. I can't remember what happened next, but my brother came back home a little while later. I didn't tell him. We both worked at a ski resort, and that night was the 85th or so anniversary. So we got in the car and I drove him through the canyon up to the resort in his truck. I felt like I could feel everything, like a sixth sense of some kind. I felt like I could feel the flow of the cars in front of me and behind me, like a rhythm or current that was connecting everything. What I felt the most, though, was my brother. I felt this sharp anxiety building up. About 20 or so minutes into the drive, he turned to me and I could tell he was agitated. He told me he needed to do something weird. He rolled down the window and started to yell, just yelling like the anxiety had built up so much that he needed to release it, and I could sense it, feel it before he ever turned to me. When we got there, I went to the employee lounge. I'm not sure where my brother went. I just sat in a corner soberly for a while, concentrating on the feeling I still had. I still felt like I could feel some extra-dimensional energy or whatever that was connected to everything and influencing everything. That sounds super woo-woo, but that's pretty much exactly what I felt. More people started to come into the employee lounge. It was sort of around evening time. I forgot to mention some were pretty drunk and off the clock, and some were on the clock on a break. I don't remember if all of a sudden it happened or just suddenly I was more aware, but I could see with my eyes open, but not exactly with my eyes. It's hard to describe. I was seeing physical reality in front of me, people talking to each other, laughing and having a good time, while vividly in my mind's eye I could see in the center of each person looked like a sun, orange and on fire with solar flares emanating out. The flares would sort of play with another person's flare, and when each flare stopped interacting with the other, 10 or so seconds later the person would move on and talk to someone else. I observed this a few times and realized I could sort of predict when two people would stop interacting before they actually did. I've thought about it a lot, and if I'm not crazy, I think what I saw was the absolute core of each person. Maybe what people describe as the soul. After this, I never really experienced anything this vivid or intense again, except some bouts of intense anxiety afterwards. I think it was related to the strong feelings, but not being able to comprehend them or know what to do with them. Not being able to just ride the current or whatever it was that I did easily the first time. The very last time I felt the feeling was when I was at a Cafe Rio with a buddy of mine, and for some reason I stopped a worker there, a young Caucasian lady, and I talked to her. I can't even remember about what, but I just did. I felt like a tether of electricity between us when I was talking. Not just some vague feeling, it was very tangible. I could almost see it in my mind's eye, like seeing something in your periphery. I didn't even talk to her for very long or about anything important, I don't think. She looked kind of shell-shocked. Her eyes were a little wide and she was kind of staring at me. I don't think she really answered my conversation with anything substantial. It seemed like I was going with the flow of whatever the feeling is, and she was extremely distracted by it. My buddy was standing a few feet away, and he basically emphatically told me after I stopped talking to her what the hell was that. He said he could actually feel a connection between us, vividly. He had the same look in his eye like she did, sort of spooked. This encounter with the woman and my friend is the only actual proof I have to myself that something did actually happen to me, and I didn't have a full-blown episode. That someone outside of me actually noticed it made me feel like something objective happened, and not just something in my head. This is pretty long already, and I have a couple other stories, but this one by far is the most extreme thing I've experienced. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I can't guarantee I'll get to them in a timely manner, though. I'm also posting this on a couple other subs.